At one point, you started getting into political commentary.
I had never been even if you watch what I was doing before, I never had been, different. I think that people became more focused on the political arena. So I think that I had always kind of had my perspective, but it just wasn't necessarily that popular. But I think that as the political arena morphed into the pop culture arena, I think that they morphed into a thing and it became more palatable to people.
Well, right, because at one point you had a show on CNN
Right.
called Deal Hughley
Right.
Breaks the News.
And that did $1 million. That did 1 million people a weekend until the stock market crashed. And I lived in LA and I had to go to New York. And I would be home 12 hours a week. So my family lived in New York, LA, and I lived in New York. The apartment I actually still have right now. And I would go back and forth and do the gig here at the CNN building here, and I would still fly and do my weekend gigs. And on Monday, I would fly home, see my family, go back out. So when the economy crashed, they'd always promised me that we could go to LA, but the economy crashed and we couldn't do it because it was just fiscally irresponsible for them. So we just decided, I said, if I can't do it from LA, then I can't do it anymore. And they said, okay.
Okay. Because I've talked to a lot of black comedians on VladTV, and the one thing that I heard on a few different occasions, like Dion Cole, we talked about this recently, was that
I don't know where this is coming from and why this happens, but they give one comic a shot, one black comic at a time a shot. Like they would not do another big blockbuster movie with no other comedian. Studios go, hey, we need this guy. And there's nothing. I love Kevin to death. That's my guy all day long. And this is his time, definitely. But and each comic gets that moment where I remember it was just Martin all the time, right. And it was like Will Smith. It was Will Smith all the time. Like
Will Smith's not as well. I guess you could
not
say
comedian,
he's a
but
comedian.
I'm talking about giving like a black person its moment at a time. But I understand what you're saying as far as comic.
Sure, I would agree, and I think that that's because they only have one marketing machine that can only work at one black comedian at a time, and I think, I don't know that it's ever been any different. It was never, it was Dick Gregory, and then it was Red Fox, and then it was Bill Cosby, and then Eddie Murphy, and then Bill Cosby, so then Martin, then Chris. So it's never. There's never like an abundant an amount of black comics. I don't know why that is. I think it's because they can't walk and chew gum at the same time. But that obviously is, I think, a phenomenon that seems to replicate itself often.
Right, because when Def Comedy Jam was doing its thing, and you were part of that as well. Yeah. You were seeing the launching of so many legendary comics, like every week.
Every week.
And like these guys all became superstars. I mean, not all, but like a bunch of them became superstars, from Dave Chappelle to Chris Tucker to so forth. But yet, you fast forward to today, you don't really see that type of launching.
Well, I think Def Jam launched a lot of people. I don't know anybody who was a star on Def Jam that's still not working today. So I don't know anybody who was a star on Def Jam who's not working today unless they did have chosen not to. That was an indelible. There was an indelible imprint in a lot of people's psyche, and that begot Kings of Comedy, and that begot. Before that it was Michael Williams at the Comedy Act Theater, which kind of started the whole thing, and I just think he didn't capitalize on it. But that was the first time so many people who had been denied access. I remember the first time I played the Improv at a joint I'm getting ready to play again right now. They only made a door deal. They said, we're not going to give you a guarantee. We'll give you a couple of grand for you to come in and buy tickets, and you can have 90% of the door. And I played this gig, and they charged $35 a ticket. And I played this gig and sold out 9 shows. So at the end of the night, I'm drinking counting up all the money. And for the first 3 years, when I would go back to that joint, that was the same thing. You couldn't even get a guarantee. I played a gig at in Raleigh, and they would make you sign a waiver that said you wouldn't talk about white people. So they even when Def Jam was at the height of its popularity, they would always make you do things. They would always cubbyhole you. So it went from not being accepted in the mainstream comedy clubs to really the life's blood of mainstream comedy clubs right now.
Wait, so you couldn't talk about white people on Def Comedy Jam?
Well, no, it was a club I played in Raleigh, North Carolina, and the club owner knew we were Def Jam acts, and so that would be the things that he said. And even that was 2 shows on a Sunday night, or you would get 2 shows on a Tuesday or Wednesday, but they never gave you the Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays. So the first time I ever got that was where they gave me $2,000 and said, you can have 90% of the door. And they charged $35 just in case. And so it ended up being where all of a sudden we started breaking down barriers and being able to play the same clubs as large mainstream white acts could.
That's what's up. So you started doing radio at one point.
I did radio. I did radio in LA this whole time, right? And so
the whole time.
Stevie Wonder. I used to do KJLH, and I got fired because I said, do you think this place would be this raggedy if Stevie Wonder could see? And 30 minutes later, it felt like 30 minutes later, he was down there and they fired me on Stevie Wonder's fired me 3 times from 3 different things.
Okay.
He's fired me 3 times.
You had a situation when Bill Cosby called in.
Sure.
Can you talk about that?
Well, I was doing Kiss FM here. Right after CNN, I was doing Kiss FM. I was doing the morning show. Bill Cosby had called in to promote a gig I think he was having in Connecticut or Pennsylvania. And I was like, Bill don't like me, and I don't particularly care for him. So I'm not going to, I'll let you guys do the interview. It was for pre-tape. And so a girl named Jackie Reed and a cat named Steve Wilson, who were my co-hosts, started interviewing me. But he was such a dick. For 5 minutes he's being such a dick. I was like, Mr. Cosby, what is it you like for us to know? He said, who is this? I said, this is D.L. Hughley. You say nigga, and I don't like your comedy. And he went in, and I was like, with all due respect, Mr. Cosby, I say nigga, but no co-ed has ever woke up drug with her drawers on backwards. And we go back and forth and back and forth. I said, I respect, he said, you could be my son. I said, but I'm not. And I said, everything you are because of your experiences, and I appreciate that, but you're not going to denigrate what I've been through. And I said, no one has ever, out of all the words people have ever said to me, no one's ever said rape. No one's ever said, we had this argument, right? And so I worked Hot 107, Kiss FM was owned by Emmys. Bill Cosby, like, that tape will never air. This is a true story. He said, that tape is not going to air. And I said, the fuck it ain't. And 10 minutes later, all the people from Emmys came down, Emmys Communications, took the tape, made sure nobody had a copy of it, said if this airs, nobody in here will work in radio again. So I know that cat had the power to make people do shit like that.
This was 2009, right?
2009.
So this is way before Hannibal Buress.
But even before that, even if you read
it.
Time and Newsweek, in the very back of the paper, it talked about all these rape allegations. I grew up in L.A. and did warm up for a lot of those shows. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it. Like Cliff Huxtable is innocent, but Bill Cosby fucked every one of them girls. But the character is innocent. The dude ain't. And I don't even think that cats like that thought it was necessarily a wrong thing to do. They just kind of thought it's what you did. You gave some people dope and they did this. They knew what the deal was. So I wasn't one of those cats who believed he was innocent just because he was funny.
So what did you specifically hear? Did you ever have like one of the girls approach you and tell you about the situation?
Yes. It was always in the like, I'll never forget. I ain't gonna say this cat's name, but when they were doing either the it was a show that came out, Different World. It was a cat who was a stage manager there, and they had let him direct one of the shows. He got to direct one of those shows, but he was a stage manager, and he was late. And that man made that other one black Bill Cosby made that black man sit down there like he was a child on the floor, like a child. I was like, this nigga, what is this shit right here? Made him do that in front of me. So I've never had this kind of image that was kind of inundated with the idea that because he was a staggeringly talented cat that he wasn't incapable of doing some of the shit people accuse him of.
Well, I mean, Bill Cosby's always seemed to have like sort of a beef with a lot of other black comedians.
Bill Cosby tried to. This is what people don't understand. When people say that you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Bill Cosby, if Bill Cosby had owned NBC, if Bill Cosby, he sat on the board of Warner Brothers, Time Warner, he tried to stop HBO from happening. He hated it. So all the comics you know, love, and respect, from the Chappelles to the Martins to the Tuckers to the Def Jam to the Kings of Comedy, he tried to stop from happening. That's just true. I'm not trying to sell his character. That's absolutely true. He did not want it to happen. He didn't appreciate like all those calls when he would call Bill Cosby, Martin Lawrence, or he would call Eddie Murphy, or he would call Will Smith and tell him how to do that comedy. That's how he was.
Why do you think that was?
I just think he saw comedy in a certain way, and if you did it differently, he didn't appreciate it.
Right, because the thing about Bill is that he did what you would call clean comedy. Like his, Bill
Cosby
himself, which is considered a classic stand-up, had no swearing in it.
I always thought it was
forth.
hypocritical that your comedy is clean, but your life ain't. That's so. You say nigga, I say nigga, but I got a woman and kids and I don't drug bras. What the fuck are you talking about? Our sliding scales of morality are just ironic to me. You work clean, you don't live that way. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, when you look at 2017 and what's happening now, like when you look at his whole legacy, and I mean, you can't deny the legacy of Bill Cosby.
No, listen,
and what he's done.
President Obama, there are two indisputable things that happened. Three indisputable things that happened. The median income of black people rose because they saw him and they saw a different world and they went to college on a great scale. And it never happened before. Black women now are the most educated segment of our society. They went to these traditionally black colleges. They majored. Now they're the most entrepreneurial, the most educated. So I don't think President Obama is president without Bill Cosby. I think that's absolutely true. But you can be both profane.
Wait. You said that there would not be an Obama.
I don't think that. I think that Bill Cosby showed America that they could have a black father. So if they could have a black father, they could have a black leader. I think he set the table for Barack Obama. I do not think that he would exist. I think that Bill Cosby was a precursor for a lot of the advancements that black people have made, and no one can deny that. But he raped a lot of broads. I don't think those are music. Like Lucifer, when he was heaven, he was God's most beautiful angel and the minister of music. If you could fuck up in heaven, you can fuck up in Harlem. That's the way it goes.
Okay. When you look at 2017, what's
Sure.
happening now? Everything's coming to light.
Sure.
Everything's coming to light. There was a mistrial, I guess, that happened, but he's still facing charges.
Well, I didn't think he would go to jail. I never thought he would go to jail. Like for me, even though I believe he did a lot of that shit, I couldn't send him to jail. I couldn't. Because I think that people waited too long. I think there were too many things that a jury is supposed to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. And there would have been things that would have been unable to convince me. And I think there were a lot of things. I think that the fact that, people loved Bill Cosby, that people remembered him, he's a fond memory in their life. The fact that the first victim looked like Colin Kaepernick. I think that there were a lot of things that were things that people couldn't get past.